Ill-defined but even more radical than second-wave feminism, third-wave feminism extended beyond the idea of the female entirely. It now argued that gender was entirely performative. It's just a role.
It is.
It was disconnected from sex. Men could be women. Women could be men.
No, Ben. No. Women can't be men. No one said that. Where did you get this? Women can't be men. Women are women. Men are men. Non-binary people are non-binary. They just are. They are who they say they are. What is so hard? Did someone beat you up? Did you get into a fist fight with a girl in third grade and she knocked your lights out or something? I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to you. We have Ben Shapiro talking all about the real history of feminism. Now, I want to let you know that I did a little bit of a background to this video. And originally, I was going to go into this with a complete historical lens by just saying that, or rather citing his sources, going through and vetting some of the stuff he says. But to be honest, he actually talks so little about the actual history that it is, I think, more valuable to pay attention to the themes and the arguments he uses, because the sources that he brings up don't agree with the points that he tries to make. It's full of non sequiturs, essentially, is what I'm hinting at here. But don't believe me. Let's go through it together. I won't be pausing a ton. We will be skipping his shameless gold ad, which is about midway through the video. And I will be pausing as he gets through sections, namely first, second, and third wave feminism. Now, that being said, I have a lot of notes and things to say, so I'll try to keep it brief and succinct for you. They'll LARP the Confederate Army down to the smallest thread and sock bullet and claim they're only doing it for heritage? Yes. First wave feminism is way, way more complex and global than what people think, but I'm sure Ben Shapiro knows all of this. Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. Anyway, Ben Shapiro, tell us all about how exactly feminism has ruined America, or rather, the history of feminism.
It's hard to look at the world today and not to be confused. Why are so many people in favor of abortion on demand all the way up till birth? Why are so many people believers that men can be women and women can be men? Why is any of this happening? The answer lies in the history of the feminist movement. This video is brought to you by Birch Gold. The term feminist has been used over time to mean a lot of different stuff. For most people, it means something pretty simple. Women should not be discriminated against just because they're women. This doesn't mean that women and men aren't different and distinct. It doesn't mean that women make the same choices that men do, or that they ought to make those choices. It doesn't mean that female biology works the same way as male biology, or that all natural differences ought to be just obliterated in the name of false equality. For most people, feminism just means that we all ought to be treated the same. In order to understand where the feminist movement has actually gone, how it moved from that basic idea to what it is now, we have to examine the history of feminism.
I want to go ahead and just say very briefly, now, his view on history and his view of feminism is going to be incredibly reductionist and very, very, very simplistic, like Wikipedia level simplistic, like not even deep dive Wikipedia, like, you know, the first little snippets and stuff like that. And then he'll cherry pick a few people here and there and a quote here or there in order to leapfrog into his arguments. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be pausing a ton, but just briefly to what he said. Obviously, that's a ridiculous way to describe first wave feminism. First wave feminism is a very complex issue full of a lot of moving parts, but we will get into all of that in just a minute.
So we begin with first wave feminism. A lot of people have used this metaphor to describe feminism. It's a series of waves. They're either 3 or 4, depending on how you define the waves. First wave feminism was typically meant to encompass the Enlightenment era philosophy that women ought to have the same basic rights as men, like the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to speak freely, the right to be considered on equal terms for jobs. Early feminists included women like Mary Wollstonecraft. She wrote a book titled Vindication of the Rights of Men in 1790. That was an attempt to fight the conservatism of Edmund Burke. Basically, Burke was arguing against the French Revolution because he was saying that it was overthrowing these very important institutions and that rights couldn't be constructed out of whole cloth. She was arguing that these institutions are an imposition on women, and it's those institutions that have led to levels of authoritarianism. It was a very rich ongoing argument, but Wollstonecraft ended up being wrong politically, even if she was right about the rights of women. So Wollstonecraft attached herself to the French Revolution. She led a really troubled personal life. She had affairs and kids out of wedlock.
Just really briefly, Ben Shapiro, anti-French Revolution confirmed. Also, hello, Gremlo. I just noticed your chat there. Everybody, please go give Gremlo a follow if you're not already following our hopefully newest Twitch partner. I'm speaking it into existence for you. I look forward to hearing that news. But good luck to you and all your endeavors. Affairs like who gives a shit? That's true. I also don't give it much of a shit. So yeah, just against the French Revolution. But no. Take it away, Ben. Don't let me stop you.
Wedlock and all of this, but her basic notion that women should be granted rights to vote, that was actually in line with basic classical liberal ideals, right? That women should be treated as individuals and they have every power and ability to vote. In 1848, at the Seneca Falls Convention, you're now fast forwarding half a century, 200 women met at Seneca Falls in New York to talk about their goals. That convention was the unofficial starting point of the first wave feminist movement. Some of the big figures here are Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. The movement was really tied to abolitionism. Frederick Douglass actually spoke at the Seneca Falls Convention. Further developments within first...
I'm so sorry. I have to very briefly mention, saying that first wave feminism was very heavily tied to abolition is a purposely vague way to describe first wave feminism. First wave feminism and the abolitionist movement do have a very interesting, intricate history. Namely, that a lot of white people like Stanton there didn't really want to include black people at all in their quest for rights, let alone black women as a fellow oppressed minority. Racism was very deep and tied in first wave feminism, causing a lot of fractures and things like that. But again, that's neither here nor there. Obviously, Ben meant that when he said that first wave feminism had a deep tie to abolition. And I wouldn't read anything else into that. Of course not.
First wave feminism came courtesy of some reformers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, libertarians. John Stuart Mill wrote in The Subjection of Women, 1869, that women were subjected to duties as wives and mothers because the whole force of education enslaves women's minds to such roles. So here you can actually start to see the beginnings of how first wave feminism eventually transforms into second wave feminism. There's a difference between let's obliterate the obstacles to women being involved in jobs and being involved in voting. There's a difference between that and let's get rid of all social institutions that actually forward things like motherhood and marriage. Even in first wave feminism, there were the early...
Can we just look at that list really quickly?
Institutions that actually forward things like motherhood and marriage.
Okay, so Ben. I need to tell you something. I need to enlighten you. Now, you have this handy dandy list here. Now, you say that first wave feminism, even if we're taking your belief structure here with it, that its true goals were this liberal idea of freedom of individuality, right? And also freedom of voting, political autonomy, and stuff like that. How can you achieve that when things like gender roles, including the things you mentioned, motherhood, marriage, those kind of things, get in the way of the first two things that you mentioned, voting and getting a job? Keep in mind that first wave feminism and third wave feminism, what ends up happening later, is all before, equal rights in the workplace is really like codified into law, right? Even though it's still not completely implemented today. We still have a wage gap. We still have inequality among genders, right? I almost said sexes. Also, Ben is going to do a lot of conflating sex and gender here. And luckily for him, historical figures, even among the feminist movement, kind of use sex and gender interchangeably a lot. It wasn't until roughly 60s, 70s that gender starts to become a more like academic term that they start to latch on to. So for him, it is very easy to then say, look, these radical feminists were trying to destroy the differences in the sexes, right? Even though that's not historically really what they meant at the time. Now, I'm not saying that some of them didn't mean that, which we're going to get into, because we're going to meet some very, very based people today. I will tell you that much, okay? He talks way too fast. I can't follow. This is one-time speed. This is one-time speed that we've got here. All right. Schism on abolition in the U.S. Seneca Falls wasn't the start of first wave feminism. Wait, wasn't the second wave feminism in the fucking 60s? No, it wasn't. No. Second wave feminism started around the 50s. He skipped about 150 years. Well, so he's going to get into it. To be fair to Ben, he hasn't gotten to the start of second wave feminism just yet. I won't. Listen, he read some Wikipedia articles, all right? His stuff isn't completely wrong, even colloquially. I'm working on something and I'm getting some ideas from people. Ooh, interesting. By the way, Gremlo, I'm moving in a little over a week. I'm going to have a new studio set up, including my vocal booth will be set up again. So if we wanted to start working on some of those projects, I know those kind of like, we talked about them once, with Ricky, and then we kind of didn't talk about them anymore. But I'd love to pick that up again and get some stuff produced, because I think that'd be funny. And yeah, so hit me up and we'll get going on like maybe some scripts or something. But yeah. Oh, I think he talks and makes him sound smarter. Maybe fast mode of speech is an old con man trick to befuddle people. It's like trying to gish gallop in regular conversation. If you just say too many words too quickly, no one can go back and realistically like dispute every single wrong thing you said, Congrats on the move. Make sure we can all see the doggo. Oh, you will. She's always around and she's glued to my hip because she's obsessed. So you will definitely see doggo. I will set up something so she can like lay or something like that. I'll figure it out. But yeah, that is what's going on with me. Anyway, let's continue. Ben, don't let me take it away from you. Please continue.
Even in first wave feminism, there were the early hints that feminism would alter gender roles in order to establish quote-unquote equality between the sexes. And equality would eventually come to mean not equality of rights, but sameness, that men and women have to be the same. In 1916, as part of the first wave feminist movement, for example, Margaret Sanger opened her first birth control clinic, a major point in the sort of inflection of the feminist movement away from the idea that what we're really about is women voting and women being able to participate in jobs, toward the idea that we have to change women's circumstances so they can do the same things as men.
Once again, even under your own logic, Ben, when your first list said voting rights and equal rights in the workplace, being able to work at jobs, right? How can you do that when you do not have bodily autonomy? How can you do that when gender roles, either if they're not legally stopping you from being able to vote, being able to go and join the workforce, if they're not culturally stopping you from doing that? What's the difference there exactly? If something is not enforced legally, but is enforced culturally, is there a difference? I feel like this is like, distinction without a difference. Without abolishing some of the ideas behind like gender roles and expectation and allowing people to have bodily autonomy, you are getting those goals of first wave feminism. By your own logic, first wave feminism never really like went away. This is just an extension of it. Second wave feminism is building upon, according to your argument, the goals of first wave feminism. So I don't see the problem here. Like, this is what I mean. And this is going to be a theme throughout the video. he's constantly going to say something as a radical distinction from the goals of first wave feminism. But I argue rather, how can you achieve those goals without going further than the simple legal distinction? How can you do that when you're dead from having your 16th child in a row before 25? You know, you just got the freedom, Comrade Devon, you know? That's how it is, right? Because first wave feminism was always about medical care, labor rights, etc. Also true. Also true.
And in defiance of biology. By the way, worth noting here, Margaret Sanger was anti-abortion. She wrote explicitly about abortion. She's in favor of birth control. She's also in favor of eugenics a little bit, but she really was not in favor of abortion. Soon, the feminist movement became a full-scale attack on such gender roles. Now we're in the second wave feminist movement. That really starts in 1949 with The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir, who is a socialist and a very far-left figure, obviously, de Beauvoir argued that femininity was disconnected from biology. Now, you're starting to see how this evolves to where we are today. She wrote, quote, "The female is a woman insofar as she feels herself as such. So it's an interior feeling. Some essential biological givens are not part of her lived situation. For example, the structure of the ovum is not reflected in it. By contrast, an organ of slight biological importance, like the clitoris, plays a primary role in it." So notice how she's redefining womanhood to mean sexual pleasure as opposed to, the most important biological function that any female of any mammalian species performs, namely the bearing of children, right?
Okay. That right there is a point I want to really focus on, okay? So when we talk about, right, femininity and what it means to be like the gender that you are, right? What Simone here is saying is very clear in that your internal like biology, your internal like organ makeup has very little to do with how you see and view yourself. It is all about how your body that you get to interact with on a daily basis defines you. Things that actually involve your own experience. That's exactly what Simone here is saying. When we talk about when she says here, for example, the structure of the ovum is not reflected in it being femininity. By contrast, an organ of slight biological importance, like the clitoris, plays a primary role in it. In that, women could talk to each other about sexual pleasure, about their parts, right? And I'm talking very, very loosely here, but the idea that is a part of them that they interact with on a daily basis. Whereas the structure of the ovum, they're not talking about that. They don't feel that. It's internal. And then Ben conflates that with that is what it means to be a woman. Not your sexual organs, right? Not your I guess like sexual parts, but your actual internal reproductive organs, right? And I think that's a very idiotic way to view how people experience themselves. I guess I would ask you, are you more attached to your heart or your arm? Granted, you feel your heart sometimes, right? But you don't think about it, right? Like if your heart worked mostly fine, right? If your heart worked mostly fine, but you had like a palpitation, right? Like a slight like palpitation, Maybe when you go running, you get winded a little fast or something. I don't know. How often would you think about that versus if you lost an arm or if you lost your hands? Right? Which would you miss more? Yeah. No. But my point being is like, how attached to you are your internal makeup versus your external makeup? How important is that? You don't interact with your internal makeup on a daily basis. At least not consciously. But you do with your external. You are much more attached to your arm, to your hand than your gallbladder, for instance. That's what I'm saying here. And that's what I think Simone is saying here, is that we are a product of our experiences to some extent, right? Now, whether or not I necessarily completely agree with that, is a different discussion. But that's, I think, a very charitable reason, like a reading of that argument, is that we are shaped much more by our experiences than biology. And you experience, like for women, you experience, right, according to Simone, the clitoris to not even a comparable degree with like the ovum. You just don't interact with it. I've read a chapter on biology and it didn't age well. Yeah, I'm not saying this person is like a great source for, modern information or anything like that. But if we're looking at this argument in particular, I think it's actually pretty sound, which is that people are much more attached to their external like experiences and makeup than they are to their internal. No one is defined by the shape of their small intestine. No one is defined by those internal organs. We are defined by our external organs, by our feelings, by our experiences. Now, again, I don't necessarily completely agree with that, but I think it's a fairly sound argument. And I think Ben's reading here is purposely like bad. I think he manipulates it when he says that now he's trying to conflate being like being a woman. The most important thing is bearing children, right? To which the obvious response is, what about women who can't bear children, right? Even cis women who can't bear children. Are they not women? Are women past menopause not women? Are prepubescent, like people with wombs, are they not women? Are sterile women not women? You realize like women as a socially constructed term is flexible. We don't attach it to biology. We attach it to identity. And for Simone here, she is conflating identity with experience. Now, again, I don't necessarily completely agree with that, but it's a fairly decent argument. And it's certainly not the one that Ben is reading out of this. That's all I'm saying. Or what about women that don't want to? Also true. Also true. Ben says grandma gets the wall. Jesus Christ. Also, hello, Carpe Packs. How you doing, buddy? Everybody. I like how you put the kappa way down there. Everybody, please go give Carpe Packs a follow. My favorite late night streamer. All right, go check him out. Go check him out. Anyway, we'll continue this and rehash that points for a second.
Primary role in it. So notice how she's redefining womanhood to mean sexual pleasure as opposed to, the most important biological function that any female of any mammalian species performs, namely the bearing of children, right?
I guess my immediate response to this is, Ben, do you think the fact that you produce sperm as like your defining feature of being a man, if it was your defining feature, why do you wear this shirt? Why do you wear those pants? Why do you wear such a simple wedding band? Why don't you wear makeup? Like, if it's just that, then anything else could change and you would still be like a man, right? According to this logic. But why do you perform, essentially? And that is my heart of my disagreement, is that gender is performative. We all perform gender on a daily basis. It's I don't know. I don't know how to elaborate on it more than that. This is just a very poor argument. But you know what? Take it away, Ben.
Important biological function that any female of any mammalian species performs, namely the bearing of children, right? The truth is that if you're trying to define, just forget about humans. If you're trying to define what is a female, right? The answer is the one that produces the egg. In mammals, is the female, right? So the ovum is actually significantly more important. But in terms of biological definition of what makes a man versus a woman, sperm versus egg is like the chief definition. Du Bois is putting that totally to the side. Which is, nature does not define woman, it is she who defines herself by reclaiming nature for herself in her affectivity.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a great statement. That's a great statement. I'm not saying this person is perfect. Obviously, I'm sure her work has aged and there are probably some problematic parts to this, but that in and of itself, nature does not define woman. It is she who defines herself by reclaiming nature for herself in her affectivity is a great statement. That is a wonderful statement. And it's true. Women who are women are only defined by those that identify as women.
Right, so the idea here is that to be truly a woman means that you have to overthrow all of the institutions of society. This is starting to get pretty radical pretty quickly. So
that's not
then
what
the question becomes, why do women seem to like being wives and mothers? And what she says is,
why do women seem to like being
they don't really like being wives and mothers. It's really that they're indoctrinated to like being wives and mothers. So she says everything helps to confirm this hierarchy in the eyes of the little girl. The historical and literary culture to which she belongs, the songs and legends with which she is lulled to sleep, are one long exaltation of man. Children's books, mythology, stories, tales, all reflect the myths born of the pride and desires of men. Thus it is that through the eyes of men, the little girl discovers the world and reads therein her destiny. Actually, de Beauvoir went so far that she actually would argue that women should be barred from becoming mothers because too many women were opting to become mothers, and this was undercutting her idea, which is that women don't want to be mothers and they don't want to be wives, and that all of the institutions are forcing them to do that. So she said, no, we actually have to stop women from making those choices. Quote, "No woman should be authorized to stay at home to raise her children. Society should be totally different. Women should not have that choice, precisely because if there is such a choice, too many women will make that one. It is a way of forcing women in a certain direction." The heat in the United States really began not with the second sex.
Okay. So just to address those last 2 points by Simone, I will say that I disagree with trying to get anybody to do any kind of choice. Obviously, I think it's fine if, someone wants to have kids and be like a stay-at-home like partner. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That being said, is Simone right about indoctrination? Yes, absolutely. We are all told about gender roles from the time that we could perceive them and even prior. You were probably dressed in certain colors or certain styles when you were an infant, right? You were probably told things, maybe little sayings about boys and girls, right? That maybe you didn't realize at the time. But if gender is socially constructed and our ideas about it are all like artificial in the sense that we create them socially, then every expectation we have is a part of that indoctrination. That is true, right? That doesn't mean that we should take people's choices away, obviously. But to say that people are not a product of their experiences, which Ben is sort of making here, I think is a very silly and indefensible claim. I will say that. Hello, Piper. You want some attention? You want some attention, huh? You want some attention? Let's take a little attention away from Ben Shapiro. All right? Let's take a little attention away from Ben Shapiro. Can I click this real quick? I know you're trying to get pets and love and attention. But Piper, oh my gosh, please, your long nails. Everybody. Piper, say it to the YouTube. Tell all the YouTube people to like and subscribe so that they can keep up to date with all the good Smite Night content. Say that for me. Also to Twitch. Hello, thank you for watching. Also, you should follow if you like my content as well. Hey, thank you for the bits, Simp for the Devil.
Boobies
you get taco points.
Boobies are things that kill you.
Boobies are things that kill you. They are. It's true. Thank you so much, Pepe Sylvia, for the tier 1 for 14 months. Piper says thank you too, huh, Piper? Huh, Piper? Huh? Yeah, you do. It is an odd problem run amok. There is no reason for someone's biology is that their gender ought to be one way or another. Nothing about the description of testicles means those who have them ought to only eat vanilla ice cream, for example. Also true. That is a very good way of viewing that. And yes, all our gender ideas are socially constructed and indoctrinated into us from the time, well, even from before we were born, because our sex was defined by a doctor's visit, most likely, and sent to our parents via a letter. And that influenced the decisions that they would make in order to indoctrinate us into one way or another, whether or not we actually are that gender. Which, to be fair, most of us are. Not the huge percentage of the population is trans. But to those that are, maybe we should be questioning the entire institution. Just a thought. Smush that good girl? You want me to smush? Huh? You want to smush? They want to smush. They want to smush face, Piper. Put your paws up here. Put your paws up here. Everyone look. Everyone look. Grr. Grr. Yeah. Yeah. Smush that face. Grr. 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 Aww. Aww. Yeah, Piper, huh? You missed me while I was at work today, huh? Did you? You miss me? Aw. All right. I think people are upset that they have to pretend along with someone like Elliot Page. Pretend? But if you never them before the change, you may never know the only reason they care. Okay, so we're gonna get into that in just a bit. So I want you to hang on to that thought because there's a little bit of truth in there, and I wanna address it. I've kissed dudes and dressed up like a girl so many times, never thought I was gay or trans. It's almost as though if you are, if you recognize your gender, nothing you do can change your gender. Nothing you do. That's why trans people don't they typically say, I've always been X gender, whatever gender that they, currently are. Maybe they didn't realize it in a previous time in their lives, but every trans person I know tells me from the time that they were kids, being able to perceive, their own gender, that they were the gender they currently are. And that's because nothing can change your gender. I could wear a dress. I could paint my nails. I could have long hair. I could wear makeup. None of that would change what my gender is. That's not how it works. And I don't think that people get that completely, Hello, Progressive Squirrel. How you doing? Nearly every professional entertainer uses a stage name, and yet no one has an issue pretending about that. Yeah, we all called Snoop Dogg Snoop Lion for like 6 months. You guys remember that? I remember that. You guys remember that? Also, I have a sneaking suspicion. I have a sneaking suspicion that Snoop Dogg isn't his real name. I don't think it is. I'm not for certain. All right. I've heard of this other person called The Rock, right? I don't think that's his real name either. I don't think so. Why do you never use the John Wayne's real name, Marion Morrison? The Snoop Dogg evolved into Snoop Lion, and then what? Devolved back into Snoop Dogg because no one calls him Snoop Lion anymore. Isn't that how that went? I don't know about that because my stage name in the past were forced upon entertainers so they wouldn't be perceived as non-white. Ooh, I'm sure some of them, yeah, but I don't know if that's the case today. I'm sure that some of them have, I don't think that's the case today. But yeah, the history of it is probably, like all the history of modern shit in America, problematic. Anyway. Let's continue, though, this video. My younger child's mom changed her name to that of a character from one of her favorite Japanese animated movies. That's fucking cool. That's actually really cool. Bob Dylan, yep. Should have said people had to call Prince combined symbol for like 10 years. My spouse is in the process of changing their name. Nice. Based. I think we should all get to pick our names. And I think I'm going to legally change my name to Smite Knight. What do you guys think? Would that get me more followers? If my name was legally Smite Knight, I think that would be pretty cool. My wife changed her name on a resume to something whiter to match my last name. Oof. But I do get that one. That one does make sense. Because America's racist. Anyway, take it away, Ben. Continue with your bullshit.
but with Betty Friedan. She wrote The Feminine Mystique in 1963. It sold 3 million copies. Friedan termed motherhood and marriage the quote-unquote comfortable concentration camp. Very, very famous phrase in American feminism. She said that gender roles, like motherhood and being a wife, turned women into walking corpses. This is a much more militant form of feminism. The idea is that women basically shouldn't do the things that typically have characterized women for all of human history, like bearing and rearing children and being wives to husbands. Instead,
It's okay. Okay, listen. Bearing and rearing children, that is just a human thing. That's literally just a human thing. Like women did not do that in isolation. All right? Like humans bore children, but also like your idea, Ben, that the nuclear family, like mom, dad, and 2.5 kids as history for thousands of years is the most laughable ahistorical take I've ever heard. The nuclear family is a modern creation. Have there been two-parent households in the past? Yeah, sure. In various cultures all across the planet, yes. Is that how children have always been raised? No. Most of the time, it's not, actually. You know the phrase, it takes a village? Well, guess what? Historically, it did. Children were kind of just children of the village. They did have parents, but they were raised by everybody in many different societies. Now, granted, not all of them, of course. I'm not trying to be reductionist here, but the idea that the nuclear family is how humanity has existed for thousands of years is fucking laughable. And it gives me endless joy. Endless joy. I call dibs on the 0.5 kid. Yeah, I apologize for allowing my internal thesaurus to run wild. Oh, you're fine. As a human, the body is a biological platform for interacting with our environment and retaining those experiences for our consciousness. Each individual has the capacity to choose how they interact with the environment. Knowing how to participate in the procreation of the species is, in my opinion, unrelated. Yeah. My author name is Katherine Jackson. So if I do write a book that gets published, you can say, knew me then. I will. I'll be like, this is actually, I know the real Dragon Morgan Muffle. All right. I knew them when they were a Twitch chatter. And a lot of the cultures didn't have a concept of marriage in the same way we do. In Amazonian cultures, you married whoever you decided to bathe with, and only until you decided to bathe with someone else. Yeah, marriage, divorce, relationships, so varied. Like, to conflate all of human history into like the nuclear household it's parody. You know, it's so wrong. I don't know where to begin. You know, but anyway. Again, the comfortable concentration camp is a great term. I do like it a lot. And it just harkens back to first wave feminism. How can women, right, according to you, get equal rights, be able to work in jobs and vote, right, if they are still confined to their gender roles? Like, even if I take this by like the liberal idea of freedom, right? Atomization, your individual liberties, freedom of travel, political freedom to vote, stuff like that, right? If I take that at its core, how can that be realized when culturally you are effectively stripped into certain categories and then barred from X activity or gate kept out of Y profession? Because of those gender roles. It's a distinction without a difference. That's the whole point. This isn't some radical new thing, Ben. It is just an extension of your own liberal point, which you pointed out at the beginning of this video in the first wave feminism, which you've had no problem with. But suddenly, second wave feminism has all these different problems, when I would argue it's literally just an extension of that first wave goals. But no, go on, please.
This makes them into corpses. What really is liberating for women is being just like men, like, you know, going to work and having a job and not being married and not having any responsibility to the next generation.
That's not what they're saying.
The second wave feminist movement started to argue that every aspect of life was political and that gender roles were inherently stifling, the only way that women could be free is to forcibly reject those roles.
Yes. No, yes, based. Every aspect of life is political. Gender roles are stifling.
That women can be free is to forcibly reject those roles.
Rejecting gender roles to be free. That is based as shit, and there is nothing wrong with any one of those points. Not a single goddamn thing is wrong with any one of those points.
In case you missed it, last month, Treasury Secretary...
Oh, we're going to go ahead and skip his little ad here where he tries to sell you gold. It's a very handy-dandy little thing at the bottom, so I can just skip here. I want to point out that this 12-minute video had a 2-minute ad.
Spend to $98.98.98 to get connected with my friends over at Birch Gold today.
Yeah,
and so you start to move from second wave feminism to third wave feminism. One of these transitional figures is Shulamith Firestone. Basically what she predicted in 1970 is where we are in 2022. She said, quote, "The end goal of feminist revolution must be, unlike that of the feminist movement, not just the elimination of male privilege, but of the sex distinction itself. Genital differences between human beings would no longer matter culturally. A reversion to an unobstructed pansexuality, Freud's polymorphous perversity, would probably supersede hetero, homo, bisexuality. Right? Complete sexual fluidity, genital differences don't matter, sex is not important anymore. It's not that sex and gender are distinct, it's that sex itself is completely arbitrary and does not matter."
Based.
Firestone actually argued in favor of a time of artificial reproduction, children being born to both sexes.
Can we just say that Ben saying artificial reproduction in a negative tone makes me question if he's against like IVF?
Motherhood would be replaced, all in order to end the, quote, tyranny of the biological family. In 1970, Kate Millett, radical feminist, was writing similar stuff, saying that sexual revolution was dependent on, quote, an end to traditional sexual inhibitions and taboos, particularly those that most threaten patriarchal, monogamous marriage, homosexuality, illegitimacy, adolescent, and pre- and extramarital sexuality. And so this is the argument second wave feminists are making. Contraception, abortion, sexual promiscuity, fluidity of sexual behavior, abolition of the family. Then you get the third wave feminist movement. So
it's not sexual promiscuity. You are framing it like that because it is different from your expectation, Ben. It's about the freedom to be able to do what you want to do and not be constrained culturally, if not legally, right? Speaking at a time when homosexuality was illegal in the United States, Ben, which I'm sure you would be very happy about. That being said, there is nothing wrong to any of that statement. Yes, to achieve, like, I could make this from a liberal argument. The idea that, yes, in order to achieve liberal ideas of freedom, of atomization, of complete political autonomy, we have to get rid of gender roles and differences between like sexes and genders. Like, yeah. And it's just like sex becomes an arbitrary thing. It no longer matters because these are distinctions that we made up. They are. We decided that like there are two genders. We decided that people born with a vagina are women and people born with a penis are men. We decided that arbitrarily. That is not like one, historically, how many societies have made distinctions among themselves. And like, thirdly, it is not insane to say that maybe we should question that. I'm not saying that we need to get rid of that completely. I'm not like, don't get me wrong. Ideally, yeah, I'm a complete like gender abolitionist, but gender is a pivotal part of people's experience today. I'm not here to deny them those lived experiences or what their gender expression is. I'm perfectly fine with people claiming to be a gender. You know, like claiming as in the sense of like understanding that we live under a system that has gender. That's what I'm saying by that. What my issue is trying to lock people in to specific gender based on arbitrary differences in what? Chromosomes? Sometimes. Genitals? Sometimes. They're like, we exist under, even now, under a bimodal model. There is no black and white issue here. This is just garbage. The Bible doesn't have pronouns? Nice. Gender is a social construct. It is a social construct. That doesn't mean it's not real, right? That's not what we're saying. That doesn't mean it's completely like it has no like value or importance, because to many people it is a very important thing. But it does mean that we should question our gender roles and expectations. We should question the systems that make up our society. And isn't that, at the end of it, like what Ben is really against? Like, imagine how easy it is to be a conservative. Like, no wonder so many of these motherfuckers don't go to higher education. What the hell is there to research? You're done. Your worldview is already constructed for you. You are spoon-fed the information that you grew up on as a child. There is nothing valuable to be gained by research. There is nothing to be learned or expanded on. You understand the world. Why would you need to go to higher education? What an anti-intellectual like mindset. And these people wonder why colleges are so blue. If you don't think you have anything to learn, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just not going to take you very seriously. You conflate history to this 1,000-year waves of your made-up bullshit, the nuclear family, the idea that every society has always treated people in the gender binary. It's just not true. Additionally, how can you say that comparing the liberal goals of first-wave feminism to jobs, voting rights, and equality, to then saying that second-wave feminism, by challenging those cultural barriers, is somehow a breakaway from that liberal idea of freedom, is also contradictory to those points of freedom. That's the whole point. I guess I don't really expect him to understand. What stupid shit is Benny Boy saying today? He's trying to rewrite history, is what he's trying to do. Different species also have different types of sexes, chromosomes, sex determination factors, etc. Also true. Also true. Ben is paid to not understand. Yeah. That's the only thing I got. He's got to be. I hope he's making some decent money. I mean, I know he is. But, yeah.
You can already start to see the transition away from, man, these institutions are forcing women into marriage and having kids. By the time you get to the third wave feminist movement, they're like, no, none of this matters anymore. Sex doesn't matter. Many people sort of posit that the third wave feminist movement begins in the 70s and continues until today. There's some people who try to date the third wave feminist movement from the 70s until like the 2010s. Ill-defined, but even more radical than second wave feminism. Third wave feminism extended beyond the idea of the female entirely, and now argue that gender was entirely performative. It's just a role.
It is.
It was disconnected from sex. Men could be women could be men.
No, Ben. No. Women can't be men. No one said that. Where did you get this? Women can't be men. Women are women. Men are men. Non-binary people are non-binary. They just are. They are who they say they are. What is so hard? Did someone like beat you up? Did you get into a fist fight with like a girl in like third grade and she knocked your lights out or something? I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to you. He's very punchable. He does have scientifically a very punchable face in Minecraft. I'm a pacifist and I see it. Listen, no one has quite the most punchable face, though. That award goes to Martin Shkreli. I stand by this statement. I find it annoying to claim a gender for myself in order to interact with others socially. I really wish people would prioritize developing their sentience and sapience instead. Oh, sentience, sorry. Sentience and sapience instead. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fair. I forgot he exists. Yeah. Wow, must have been a brief moment for you. I am often, for some reason, reminded of his existence. Listen, at the end of the day, again, I believe in like gender abolition, right? I dream of a world in which we don't have to identify ourselves and limit ourselves to, these performative roles, right? That being said, we're not there. We're not there, and we're probably not going to be there for the foreseeable future. So in the meantime, I think that gender is valid, and I think that people's gender identity is valid, and there's a really simple solution, which I'm sure Ben as a conservative would like, because simple solutions are like kind of their bread and butter, even though most of the time they don't really work. Believe people when they tell you who they are. That's it. That's all you have to do, is believe people when they tell you who they are. It's not radical. It's not crazy. It's really simple. One of the simplest things you can do.
The trans movement is an outgrowth of third-wave feminism. It sounds like Shulamith Firestone. So is the idea of total androgyny, replacing gender altogether. Now, the early leaders in this movement included Robert Stoller. He was the author of a book called Sex and Gender in 1968. He argued that sex and gender were entirely distinct. Stoller's inspiration was, of course, John Money, who was a perverse human being. He was the founder of the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. Money became famous because he was given a boy who had a botched circumcision. The parents came to him and said, what do we do? And he said, well, cut off the rest of it, form a fake vagina, and then pretend that this kid is a girl. And this kid, of course, ended up in teenage years saying, wait, hold up, I'm a boy, ended up committing suicide. Money.
I don't know the history of that, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that Ben glossed over a lot of things there, but I'm not well read enough. I hope Ted Cruz's kiss my ass pronouns follow him until kiss my ass changes them. Yeah.
He argued that, quote, the gender identity gate is open at birth for a normal child, no less than one born with unfinished sex organs. It stays open for at least over a year after birth. And then he would extend that window, right? This is how you see the trans movement now, which is like, today you could be a woman. Today you could be a man. Judith Butler went even further.
Today you could be a man or a woman. I am a man, and it is today. So this is a true statement. Hello, chatter. Do you know that you are also the gender that you are? Did you know that? Isn't that neat and cool? Ben Shapiro for validation. All right. It's a super infamous case. I'm not familiar with it, to be honest with you, Maddie. I'm really not. So I can't comment on it. If anything, that's kind of proving trans people exist. Even when someone we raise one way is still like, no, this is wrong. Yes. It also doesn't invalidate trans identity. When you try to force a gender identity onto a child that is not their gender identity, yes, they are going to have problems. Hence, why we should treat trans people with the medical care that they need and not just ridicule them and force them into the most persecuted minority role in America, perhaps. I don't know. Just a thought that crossed my brain noodle. Being married to a gender fluid person is open minded to so much bullshit. Yeah. Experience absolutely is important. My own partner is trans. I am very grateful for the insight that she has given me about the trans community, about gender identity, expectations, gender roles, etc. Right? Very, very grateful for all of the things that she has shown me. So yeah, experience is incredibly valuable and important. So I definitely agree with you. But it was about a baby who was medically disfigured and then forced to be raised a girl. Then the kid ended up having a lot of mental issues from it all. I mean, yeah, if they're not that gender identity, that's not going to work out. Well, they just want them to die. The right just wants us to get the fuck out of the way. It's not about caring about this or having some concerns. It's literally, this is icky and I shouldn't have to deal with it. Yes, I am convinced that if right-wingers got their way, there would be camps for trans people. And they would probably not call them camps, of course. They would call them gender therapy, or they would call them conversion camps, which are now probably going to be protected by the Supreme Court in this upcoming case. But we'll see about that now, won't we? Anyway, so yeah. I have no doubt in my mind that would be the case.
As a founder of so-called queer theory, she argued that even transgenderism is a problem. It's not radical enough transgenderism, because transgenderism relies on the gender binary, right? If you're transgender, you are saying that you're a man in a woman's body or a woman in a man's body.
That's a very dated way to talk about like trans identity today. It is how trans identity was discussed about 15, 20 years ago, more, I think. But no, that's generally speaking not how it's talked about today. You're not a woman in a man's body. You're a woman, like, that's it. You're just a woman, you know? If you're talking about like body and like maybe dysphoria, that's going to range dramatically individual to individual. Some trans people go through gender affirming surgery and care, right? Because their body does not align with their gender identity. Some trans people, it doesn't matter. They don't view their body as like one way or another. They are just trans. They are man who has a vagina. That does not make like them less a man, for instance, you know? It's just that's why we talk about this the way we do. It's not you're a woman stuck in a man's body or something like that.
But this relies on the idea of two genders, right? She says, no, we don't need any of that stuff. So she relied on the perverse and disgusting postmodernist Michel Foucault, who saw all descriptions of ideas as reflection of power dynamics. So she argued for total gender fluidity, full individualist pursuit of self-definition. You can be fully biologically male, you can be a female, or you can be nothing. Right? You can be just a gender non-binary cat. You can be whatever you want to be. She says society has to approve and celebrate such self-definition because, quote, we are not carving out a place for autonomy if by autonomy we mean a state of individuation, taking a self-persisting prior to and apart from any relations of dependency on the world of others. So what she's saying there is that true autonomy means I get to define myself any which way I choose, and you have to clap.
I don't get the clap part. I don't get where he's getting that. Ben, do you walk into a room and then when you say, you know, when someone introduces you as Mr. Ben Shapiro, are you expecting people to go, do people do that for you? Or do they just use he, him pronouns for you? Like automatically? Do they stand up and cheer and say you're so brave, or do they just ask if someone can take his coat? Because that's exactly what trans people are asking for, is when people are told what your gender is, or you perform your gender by wearing a suit, by dressing a certain way, by talking a certain way, people just treat you with that gender identity, because that is exactly what trans people want. It is not this weird idea of like, oh, we have to do something extra. You don't have to do anything. That's the beauty of it. You just get to call Elliot. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's the simplest shit on the planet. It's so fucking simple. I don't know why this is so hard for you to understand. There's a lot of discussion in feminism about these issues, but it's not the only thing. Yeah, feminism is all sorts of stuff. It's all sorts of stuff. Yeah, he's not talking about feminism anymore. He's talking about like gender theory. Yeah. He thinks he deserves applause for being such a big boy. He ate his spaghetti. He went and dry fucked his wife the night before, and we all have to clap for her dry ass pussy. Okay, that's what Ben needs his applause for. He's like, I did not make her wet. I did not do that. That would be a medical condition. Oh, I don't know, show me the unstained sheet with a hole. Jesus, causing enough friction or something? What the fuck? He went in her like he was trying to rub a fire. There was so much friction. Oh, I'm sorry, Ben.
And if you don't clap, you're denying my identity.
No one said that.
There are questions as to whether there has been a fourth wave. If there is a fourth wave, it probably dates to like right about now. And the fourth wave is basically the idea we're now beyond gender completely, we're now beyond sex completely, and now it's about political power and how we form coalitions of the oppressed under intersectionality. So we don't just have to worry about male-female binaries, we don't just have to worry about the patriarchy, we have to see how issues of race and issues of class intersect with issues of gender and sexuality, and it's kind of a mishmash, and that's how you end up with the Pride Progress flag with like everything in it. Okay, so
can we talk about like out of context how based this would sound in like one of those PragerU like clip ups? Like listen to this real quick.
How issues of race and issues of class intersect with issues of gender and sexuality, and it's kind of a mishmash, and that's how you end up with the Pride.
And then like just right before he brings up like the Pride flag, wouldn't that be a great little cut? Wouldn't that be like a great little like cut there? You know? The conservative mindset rejects change in most forms unless the change reinforces preconceptions. Yeah, exactly.
Progress flag with like everything in it. Okay, so we went from the feminist movement directed toward something, namely achievement of rights for particular individuals, toward a movement directed against. And the movement directed against is all tradition. It is biology. It is reality. It is language. It is your ability to speak freely. Okay, the evolution of feminism.
That was great. Wait, no, that was great. No, wait, Ben, can you just not be a shitbag? Because like it would be really cool. This like music background is pretty good too. You could have like very easily like been like based right there, but instead you bring up some deleted tweets. Remember when pride was a sin? I can't do a good Jordan Peterson. And Ellen Page just had her. Oh my God. These fucking embarrassments. Impossible. That's Ben's natural state. True. The insanity continues at Twitter. Jordan B. Peterson has been suspended for his tweets. He just told me he will never delete the tweet. These people are like, do you not understand how performative you sound? How fucking performative you fucking sound? Jesus Christ.
Over time, it's really a devolution. It's not an evolution at all. It starts with certain high ideals, and it ends with the complete destruction of all roles, sex, gender, all of it. It ends with
Can we go back for a moment? I need you all to appreciate that.
And it ends with the complete destruction of all roles, sex, gender, all of it.
Ben, you can't show a super fucking cute femboy in your video doing an adorable little dance, and you're just like, this is the crumbling of Western civilization. Don't show us your fucking Pornhub history to prove your fucking political point, okay? He's got it in scary black and white, too. He's got it in fucking scary black and white.
It ends with the destruction of all of that in the name of autonomy. The only problem is, of course, that does not generate anything remotely like human happiness, which is why you see skyrocketing rates of simultaneous self-identification as LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign, and simultaneous skyrocketing rates of mental illness and suicidal ideation, specifically in areas that take these sorts of ideas incredibly seriously.
Why is that? Why is it that those areas might have higher levels of suicidality? Huh, Ben? Why could that be? Could it be like a societal issue? Could that be it? Nah, it's definitely just some weird, we should just reject them and persecute them and throw them all like in prison or something. That'll do wonders for their mental state. That'll do great. I'm sorry, that just cracked me up. But that's basically the end of the video. He's just gonna ramble on about the sponsor and things like that. Listen, I think I made all my points fairly clear there. It's really, really simple that Ben is conflating a lot of the quotes that he was getting, just lying otherwise, trying to conflate sex and gender, the goals of feminism to erase all sex and gender distinction. While that is the goal of some feminists, definitely conflating that to some of the characters that he did is a mischaracterization of their arguments, to say the least. Additionally, I would posit that even under the liberal ideology that he was mentioning of freedom, equality, etc., freedom to vote and freedom to work in a job, how can you have that freedom if you are still limited to the gender roles and expectations that he himself listed? Marriage, motherhood. You can't really work a full-time job if you are also expected to be like a full-time, like stay-at-home mom. Now, are you? You can't exactly go and, do whatever the fuck you want if you're expected to do a certain cultural action. It's, again, a distinction without a difference. And that's what I think Ben doesn't really understand. The thing is, he doesn't even care about people having mental issues. He's just weaponizing these issues to push his own biases. Oh, yeah, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit about people having mental issues. He doesn't have any solutions to that. It's just be more of a dick. And that's like how you solve like the mental crisis in America. Just be more of an asshole. That's it. That's literally it. It's like gun control arguments, something, mental health, ignore the problem. Yeah, exactly. Well, so people like Ben and people, like Jordan Peterson and, some other right wingers and stuff like that, they bring up the July 4th mass shooting, right? And they often say that, oh, this person should never have been allowed to buy a gun. Clearly, they have like a problematic history. They've got like maybe some mental issues going on, something like that, right? And also look at them, they're, pink hair, SJW, ha 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 ha, even though they went to like Trump rallies and draped themselves in a Trump flag, but whatever. But then have no solutions even to their own posits, right? When they say that, oh, this person has a history of something, it's like, oh, so you'd be in favor of something like red flag laws. No, those are anti-American, brother. Oh, okay. How about like universal health care to make sure that people get access to mental health care so that they can get treatment? Nah, that's socialism. Well, until guns cost a fuck ton more than you can make on something like minimum wage, this is going to keep happening. It's just going to keep happening. You've made a commodity a right, and you don't care about the solution. Just like they don't care about the solution to this. Because there is a solution to the high suicidality of the trans community. You want to know what it is? Gender-affirming care. That's what it is. It's been researched. There are plenty of academic articles, medical journals, doctors, testimonials, etc., that prove that some of the best things you can do to reduce the suicidality of the trans community is to give them gender-affirming care. And the second thing is just love and support. Because a trans person with the support of a single family member has reduced suicide rate over 90%. When you ostracize people, make them the other, I don't know, maybe institute legislation that make it illegal to give them medical care or treat them as second-class citizens, bar them from sports, from locker rooms, from bathrooms, from basic necessities of life. That's going to have a detrimental effect on their mental health. Now, isn't it? Don't know what to tell you. Proof is right there. Hello, YouTube. If you like this content, you should smash that subscribe button. Maybe hit a like. Means a lot. Cool, thanks.